I'm pleased to bring to order the afternoon plenary session. First up this afternoon for us is Dr. Sergie Popov, a former Soviet bioweapons designer. Sergei might come off from his history as something of a mad scientist. He was in charge of designing new kinds of bugs for the Soviet bioweapons system.
Hello. Thank you for the invitation to speak today. And first of all, I need to start with a small disclaimer. I think weather in Seattle is just beautiful. And its conclusion after 35 years in Siberia, where winter is 9 months long. And the second disclaimer I would like to say is that I don't have any interest, private or any other, talking about what I'm going to talk about. First of all, for a long time, I just wanted to forget what I've done. And spent beautiful 6 years in Texas doing biomedical research in a very nice facilities, and nobody even asked me what I did before. That's a wonderful country. That would be certainly impossible in the Soviet Union. But now I feel that I have a kind of responsibility to talk about what's been done and what we practically don't know. And more than that, it's a very interesting situation that some data I'm going to talk about have already been published, but nobody paid attention. On the other hand, there is quite a lot of misconception about the Soviet program, what's been done, what was successful, what's not. And for the majority of the topics I would like to touch, there is no data available. And what I'm going to talk about is just up to you to believe me or not, because sincerely, we will have no solid confirmation. It's just my knowledge. So let me start. It takes a little time to load. And this small movie will give you a kind of impression of what I'm going to talk about. It's very impressive. And sometimes terrifying. So, the variety of bioweapons is a huge topic. And it's actually the first talk today on biology, on microbiology. And I'm not going to review in depth the biological weapons. As I said, I would rather attract your attention to what is very well known and what is relatively new in the field of biological weapons. What all we heard about anthrax attacks, and a lot of people right now know quite a lot about anthrax. But all we heard about anthrax is just very old knowledge. And it's been there for a long, long time. So what's new in the field? We'll review it briefly. But first of all, let me start with some figures taken from the document presented to the United States government in the year 2000. And it stated that bioterrorism accounted only for a small number of events. Actually, the total number of bioterrorism events counts up to 50 compared to 5,000 deaths of foodborne diseases, medical errors, and so on, so on. So the question is, and the document actually concluded that we paid too much attention to bioterrorism. But it was the year 2000. A little bit of history. In 1947, the United States government was very calm about bioterrorism, and probably it was right to dismiss exaggerated notions about biological and chemical weapons. But in mid-90s, the situation completely changed, and now nobody doubts that we live in a very different world. So, do we really pay very much attention to bioterrorism? I think not at all. And the reason is that the threat of bioterrorism goes far beyond simple casualties. It's an enormous psychological impact on society. And we also have to take into account the potential for economic devastation. Biological weapons are very controversial, and sincerely, I have never believed that what Russians did and Soviets did would ever be applied in a battlefield. But ironically, the same kind of agents is very good for bioterrorists. And I would like to talk about biological weapons and to touch bioterrorism issues, although I am not an expert in bioterrorism itself. So what we have is 4 usual classes of biological weapons, including bacteria, rickettsia, viruses, toxins, and the 5th unknown class, engineered agents. And bacteria are very convenient. They don't require sophisticated equipment. They could be grown up on a very simple artificial media, could be easily separated from and concentrated and put into different preparations. Rickettsia are very close to bacteria, but viruses certainly stay apart. And the most representative smallpox virus is notoriously difficult to grow up. So it requires sophisticated equipment, special trained personnel, and very expensive actually in production. Nevertheless, in the former Soviet Union, there was a technology developed which employed huge bioreactors, and it's well known how to grow smallpox in cell culture. Toxins are considered as a part of biological weapons, but usually they are not very much attractive, although Saddam Hussein stockpiled botulinum toxin and probably was ready to apply it. Regarding efficacy of biological weapons, I would like to show you this very conservative estimate. And you'll see that from the total number of potential biological agents, which is about 50 or maybe more, potential biological agents which could be used to create biological weapons, not all of them are equally good. And from this table, you'll see that Q fever and, say, anthrax are good because they could be spread with high efficacy. They inflict a lot of damage, including incapacitation and death. And some other agents like typhus, classically very important for public health, are not considered to be a very good biological agents for biological weapons. So what is the requirement for a good biological weapon? And it's been a lot of struggle around these lines, you know, because what I experienced in my professional life, it's always the desire of military people to make every agent to be as lethal as possible, to kill as fast as possible, to be ideally suitable to be produced at high scale, on high scale, and should have some desirable characteristics as well, such as the capacity to protect troops against the possible biological agent. But again, ironically, in the Soviet biological program, the protection means attracted very little attention.